Hey everybody, Coach Stacy Lynn here. I know it's been a couple of days since I have come in. Wow, I can't believe it's already Thursday, people. If you haven't seen the live stream that my husband Randall and I did on Sunday, I want to encourage you to take some time and check it out. I know it might be kind of tedious to watch, but the reason I want you to check it out is because my husband shares his testimony of how he came to Christ. And um, we're going to be continuing to do some couples stuff together, just so you know. I do want to let you know that me sitting on the couch in that very awkward position, probably not my most flattering look here on my channel, but this week will be on different screens, so that will be a little bit better for me and my husband. But wanted to have you check that out. So today, though, I have a question. Have you ever had difficulty really making friends in your church? I know, right? So I'm gonna guess a lot of people have. Um, and I'm going to tell you why church is probably not the best place for you to make friends. Okay. And you're probably like, what? This is one of the things that I have talked to so many people about, especially older people. And I know since most of you are really old here who watch me, this is probably pertinent to you. But I also want to address this from a younger person's perspective as well, because I work with some people who are in their 30s and they're trying to find mates and different things like that. And they think actually going to church is a good place to find a mate. And on the surface, it might appear to be a place, but really, unless you're involved in some type of reciprocal group where people actually get to know you, you're not going to have a lot of luck finding deep relationships in a church setting. And this is something I've been thinking a lot about because 4 years ago I wrote my book Pickleball Faith, which you can't see here very well because it's on. I got my thing. Wait, is that it? Yeah, there it is. Pickleball Faith, Inspiration on and off the court. One of the things I wrote in my book was that I found more community at pickleball than I have in all the years I have at church. And as I was talking through this week, I realized a couple of things, and I wanted to share this with you if you fall into this category. Okay. So here's the thing. Churches, whether you want to accept it or not, they actually run on hierarchies. Okay. So any church you go to, I don't care what church it is, there's going to be a hierarchy in that church. You're going to have the pastor or the priest if you go to a Catholic church, or a prophet if you go to a church that has prophets or whatever. I wouldn't recommend that personally, but anyway. But anyway, churches have a hierarchy. So you're going to have a pastor, and then you'll have the elder boards, and then the deacons. Typically, you have women's ministry and children's ministry, right? So you go into these churches, and there's hierarchies. Okay. Immediately, right there, the issue with the hierarchy is that normal relationships don't have hierarchies, right? Now, a family might have a hierarchy, like in the sense that you have parents and children, right? So the parents take care of the children. So there's that hierarchy. In a coaching relationship or a therapeutic relationship, even though nobody wants to really talk about it, the hierarchy is the therapist or the coach is higher than the client, right? Because the client is paying for the help of that. So you have a subordinate role in that particular thing. It's the same thing with a doctor or a patient, right? So you go to a doctor, you're the patient, you're submitting to the hierarchy of the doctor. And churches are set up this way. Now, nobody talks about it, but it is. And the reason why they're set up this way is because they're actually businesses. So, you could actually look at your church as a business and the pastor is the CEO, right? And then you have the other hirelings below them. So, what does this have to do with you being able to make good relationships in there? I'll tell you. What this does is it actually decentralizes the care that you get in the church. Because what happens is the church will designate people to care for people in the church. And case in point, when I was first saved in the 80s, 1980s, um, there were shepherding groups, right, in the church I went to. And the shepherds were they were the elders, right? So the elders were each given like 20 families in the church. And then those elders had to check in with those families and they shepherded them. And there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's healthy. I think that's actually a healthy thing, is that you actually have a spiritual elder who's supposed to be spiritually more mature than everybody else. That's why they're an elder, and they're there to serve the body, to help the sheep in that church. You don't have that in most churches today, at least not big, huge mega corporation churches, which is why when you go to a church and let's say you go to a smaller church, the centralized care is usually the care pastor or maybe the women's ministry, or you have a group of elderly ladies who write cards to people and check in with people, or they're mandated to call you. By the way, just in case you don't know, I used to be an elder's wife on many occasions. And one of the things my husband learned as an elder is that they have love bombing committees in churches. So, like when a new person comes into a church, the elders and all those, they seek out the new people, right? They befriend them, love bomb them. And then what they do is they figure out what they do for a living, right? They kind of size them up to see if they're going to be good givers of money. hmm And then they love bomb you and they will go ahead and they'll try to get you into the church that way. Happens in every single church I've been in, every single one. And it's sad because the hierarchy that ends up being in the church is that when there is care given, it is decentralized to the leaders in that church, right? So you have people who go visit people in the hospital, etc., blah, blah, blah. But the question is, where is it in the Bible, the structure? Where is that set up? It's actually not in the Bible. That's not the structure of the Bible. What's interesting, though, is that it doesn't feed into the true relational needs that people have. Now, what's interesting is that, yes, there's been research that shows that people who go to church, they will live longer and all that. But actually, here's the other thing. I think part of the reason why that's the case is because they're being social. Nowhere does it actually say that it's the best place to go make friends. So here's the thing. If you've ever gone to church and you haven't been able to make friends, that's part of the reason why, is because it's set up for you not to. It's actually set up as a hierarchy. And those people in those roles, they actually meet the needs, supposedly, of the people. Um, so the question then is, where do you go to make friends? Right? That's a good question. Where do you go to make friends? Now, I talk to clients about this a lot because I work with clients who are older. Maybe they're widowed, maybe they have no children, maybe actually they're younger and they have no children, they're looking for a mate. Where do you go to make friends? I'm going to give you one word: pickleball, people. Okay, that's two words. Pickleball. Now, I'm bringing this up as an example. It's not the only place that you can go, but I'm going to tell you why pickleball has become the fastest growing sport in America. The reason why is because people go to pickleball And you can be a beginner or you can be, an avid advanced player or in between, whatever. It doesn't matter. You can go pretty much to any place today in America and learn to play pickleball. It doesn't matter. No, what happens is you go to pickleball. Guess what? There's no hierarchy there. Unless of course you got diva players who are super into tournaments and they try to bully people, which I write about in my book. But generally speaking, when you go to pickleball, everybody is on the same level. There is no hierarchy. There's nobody there saying, oh, you have to answer so and so about this and blah, 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 unless you join a class. Okay, that's different. That's not actually going to a community form pickleball, right? So you go there, there's no hierarchy, which means that you can go and you can hang out with whoever happens to be there. Then what happens is you are in a relationship with a group of people who, just like the TV show Cheers, everybody becomes they get to know your name, right? You show up, people know your name. You're not required to show up. You can show up whenever you feel like it. That reciprocity, that builds relationship. When you're in community together, you begin to become familiar. There is no hierarchy. And then what happens is you begin to develop warmth between people. And then those relationships build out of that commonality. And eventually people, find spouses and they get married. I've actually seen this. Now, my husband and I actually met in a singles group. That was 36 years ago. I know. I'm that old, people. Yeah, I am. Um, And what was interesting about that situation was my husband and I, we bonded over music. I wrote a song, he liked it, and then we started hanging out, and that's how we became husband and wife eventually. So it does happen. You can meet a spouse at a church setting, but generally speaking, if you're trying to find friends, you're not going to find the environment is really conducive to building friendships. What you will find is it's conducive to allowing you to go to activities and attend things and to give to things. And this is why, and I'm going to say it out loud, this is why when you leave church and nobody ever follows up and says, hey, where are you at? It's because it's not built for that, which is, in my mind, tragic. And yet, I have been a part of the corporate state-run type church for over 4 decades. And every single church I've left, very few people, if any, will follow up and say, hey, where'd you go? What happened to you? Why'd you leave? What happened? Now, if they're actually a real friend of yours, if you've somehow been able to develop one relationship in a whole church like that, then that's a keeper relationship. But generally speaking, when you leave a church, people will not follow up and they will not find out why you left. They might notice that you're gone, but they will not call you because the church structure isn't set up that way, which actually goes completely against what scripture teaches us, which is to be in a body, to be in fellowship. If you look at Acts, the book of Acts, which a lot of people don't read, but if you look at it, they met in houses. Actually, believe it or not, I actually had somebody um, in a Bible study that I'm in this week actually tell me they had never heard of the house church. I was like, you've never heard of the house church movement? There are more people in house churches today in America than you actually know. There's been a great exodus from traditional state-run churches. And I call them that because that's what they are. Um, there is a reason people have left, quote, the big traditional mega church. It's because they're not getting reciprocity there. They're getting a structure. And so today I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I wanted to explain that to you. You are not nuts if you've gone to church, you've left, and nobody has contacted you. It's not designed to, unless the hierarchy in that church sends somebody after you. And you're not crazy if when you started going to church, the leadership or people they specified to targeted you to find out what you do for a living, how much money you make, and how you can serve in the church because that's what they do, people. It's not an environment where true organic relationships actually come out most of the time. And that is sad, isn't it? Which is why I do this because I see it a lot. I've experienced it. And that's why my husband and I, a couple of years ago, we decided to start our own house church and fellowship with people because the people that show up, they actually are interested in developing a relationship. And I hope that you have that experience because for me, it's been life changing. I actually talked to Randall, which you'll see in more videos, and I said, what has changed since we left the traditional church? And basically, what's changed is we've developed deeper relationships with people who want to be in God's Word together and who want to grow. You know, we all have issues and we all need a community of support to deal with those issues. And actually, that's one of the things in the research that talks about longevity is if you just need to have one or two really good friends in your life. You don't need 5 million. You don't need 10,000 Facebook friends. You just need a couple of solid people that you can turn to, and those people help you get through. So I would be interested in knowing if you're someone who has been a part of the church and you've left it and nobody's ever contacted you after you left, and or you were love bombed when you went in, and or you've had difficulty making friends in the church. Because if you have, I just explained to you why that is. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I hope you have a better day, people.